155 cards, and then below they have given some sort of justification of that. So first of all, they've substituted into the formula and got 155, and then they've checked this by then just extending the table and just purely following the pattern that was noticed in the first place, that the first differences were going up by 3. And then they've justified it even further, which is really nice, by drawing the diagram for 10 stories. So that's a good verification, I think, that the formula seems to work.
I probably would add at this point, it's probably worth doing, for your own benefit and for communication benefit, once you've got the formula, it's probably worth checking with a case that you've got already. So just a quick check. Maybe check that if you replace x with a 5 in your formula, that you do actually get 40. So just do a quick check with the values. Yep. Now the one thing that's missing here is to actually state, even though it's to actually state the obvious, to state that because by the table and by the diagram, it shows that my formula is correct. Very important statement, that formula is correct. Okay, so shall we say roughly what this person would have got for their grade?
I think it has a lot of good things about it. And the one thing that it probably is missing is the level 7 and 8 criteria. So I think it would definitely get a solid 6 for the B criteria.
Yeah, the 6 criteria says that they've actually found the formula and they've verified that it's correct.
Yeah. And then for communication, there was a little bit missing. So I think a 4 for communication out of the 6. If there was a bit more words just explaining each step, then definitely the 5-6 is a possibility there.
Yeah, so for a 5-6, we're looking for you to state the obvious and also to use all the correct vocabulary and not miss any of the key words out.
Yeah.
Now what we'd like to do briefly is just show you some ideas of how you could have got the 7 and the 8.
So one of the things that was missing, and that is in the criteria, is to get a 7 you need to discuss the limitations of the general formula, because of course we can't just use any old number in our formula. And to start with, if we look at the I used n in this case, or x, the one that represents the story number. We have to start with 1. We can't have less than 1 story. So x or n has to be greater than or equal to 1. And it's important to remember that it can't be a decimal or a fraction. So x or n or whichever letter you choose has to be an element of the integer set. So whole numbers. Then if we look at the number of cards needed to build each story, so in this case C, or in the example we just showed Y, that has to be greater than or equal to 2 because we needed 2 cards to create the first story. And again, the Y or C has to be an element of the integer set of numbers.
Okay, so that would have got you a 7.
Yep.
And then for the 8, this is the tricky bit. There's several different ways of approaching this. It's basically, to get an 8, you've got to try and mathematically prove or mathematically show, well, why is the formula what it is. Mr. Dees has found a good, fairly straightforward way. Do your best to follow it. It does involve you understanding, remembering about triangle numbers or Gauss, remembering to how you add numbers 1 to 100. So for example, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, all the way up to 100. So if you're not sure about that, you'll have to look it up.
Okay, so what I did here is I broke down each story. I pretended that I had an n story